whatsoever. I wholeheartedly agree with that. And as you say, an opportunity for you guys to make your own minds up ahead of what's going to be an exciting season. A lot of changes, including the introduction of MotoGP Sprint. A few changes on Sunday as well to cover all of it. As we said, Carlos Ezpeleta, MotoGP Chief Sporting Officer, is with our very own Fran Wild. Over to you guys.
Hello, yes, I saw a zoom in on the screen, beautiful. Welcome everyone. If you're listening in audio, welcome a little later. Welcome everyone to our very first Thursday Gear Up of the season here in Portugal. Welcome Carlos, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So we're trying to make it more casual. Obviously, first one of the year, it's like, hello, how are you? But we're in Europe, first time in quite a long time. It's great to be back. We've got more MotoGP than ever to look forward to. First of all, for you being sort of the part of the sport that you are, how excited are you for the year ahead? Easy question first, because I know the answer is very, but maybe a few more words.
Well, in fact, it is. Super excited to start this season. It's probably the most disruptive season that we've had in history, and I think that the sport welcomes it. As you're saying, it's the first time we start in Europe in over 20 years. Which is great. We were just down there for the photo shoot and for the riders, and there's just so much atmosphere in a European paddock. So many journalists are here, which probably wouldn't be maybe if we were in Qatar. And it looks like it's going to be a big sellout this weekend here at Portugal. So really happy, and as you were saying, first of the new format. So.
It is the first of the new format. Now, where do we go next? I think we'll go for new format next, then we'll talk a little bit more about the calendar. Obviously, the MotoGP Sprint, biggest thing. Arguably the biggest shake-up in the sport since we had different categories. Obviously, the dawn of the MotoGP era. Before that, the changes of capacity, machinery. Why is now the time, do you think, for the sport to do that? It seems like there's a great opportunity at the moment, and what is kind of adding the sprint going to do for the sport, and why is the time now?
Well, yeah, I'd agree so. I think that it is definitely the biggest change, specifically in format of the weekend that we've had. And I think that now it's the right time, because that's when everybody has agreed it's the right time. And it's, making changes like this is quite challenging. And
I was going to say, what goes into it? For anyone who thinks that you or someone else just sits down and goes, I think we should change this, and then everyone goes, okay, yes, you send it in a WhatsApp group and the job's done. What does it actually require? Because there's so many moving parts to the sport.
Yeah, and in Dorna we're very proud of consensus and agreeing and convincing rather than imposing, and I think that's been the case with Sprint. I think that it took some weeks, some definitely a lot of meetings with all the stakeholders, the FIM.
Did anyone cry, or was it all?
No, it was all happy and no tears. And then, there was things that we changed, and during that summer last year, and I think that we've come up with a good consensus for all. We're not super proud, so if something doesn't work, we won't mind changing it again. And there's definitely MotoGP Sprint, 3 p.m. on Sundays is the main course. On Saturdays, sorry, 3 p.m. on Saturdays is the main course of the meal, of the change. But there's a lot more to what Dorna is doing, to what the teams are doing and the riders, to be able to both give more to the fans, which are at the heart of our product, but also to gain more fans, which is what we're about.
Yeah, obviously, and with having more racing action, and it has its own identity as well. We've got a few changes with the podium for the sprint as well, and that kind of stuff. We've also got the rider parade on Sunday morning. Definitely for people at the track, that's going to be a really cool new thing. Being able to see the riders on Sunday morning going around and actually see them in person, because obviously helmet down is very cool, but it's a different kind of experience than seeing their face. But is that kind of, how do you find that balance between the stuff for the guys who come to the track and also the TV and the millions of people who watch at home? Because it's a good balance to find.
Well, first off, I think that having something that is really cool live at the event itself makes it just much cooler as well to watch live, and for us to portray and for it to be perceived, because it is like that Dorna cares about making our events, and MotoGP cares about making the fans having the best experience possible, is at the center of Dorna's philosophy. And you're speaking about MotoGP events, and most of them, if not all, are destinations by itself. We're not lucky enough to be able to race at the center of capital cities. So all our fans, hundreds of thousands of fans, are making their way to our events, and the least we can do for them is to engage with their heroes. And that's, of course, now with the double race, a sprint on Saturday and the race on Sunday, but also the parade show, being able to see, to hear, to touch the riders, it's a big advantage.
It's definitely cool. And obviously on the sporting side, which is your kind of main thing as well, it's quite a lot to think about as a rider. And there's now, I think it's 777 points overall that are now available this season. Quite a few on Saturday, obviously the same 25 points for the win in the Grand Prix race on Sunday. That's pretty exciting as well, isn't it? Because that means there's so many moving parts throughout the year. As we kind of we're lucky enough here with such close competition, we often have deciders in the final round or penultimate round. That adds a whole new kind of cog to the system, doesn't it?
Yeah, we calculated it on purpose for it to be 777 because 7 is the lucky number.
For those looking for the cynicism, there you have it.
No, it was quite a funny outcome to the number of points in play this season. But I think sprint is not just another race. Sprint is a different format. Great 20-minute lights off. Race as fast as you can. For 20 minutes, and then it's the checkered flag, so really easy to understand. It's meant as a hook for new fans to the sport itself, and a reminder that there's a race the next day. We've worked hard also with our broadcasters, and many of them will be aired in different territories. Some of them.
Yeah, I was going to say there's some interesting stuff there as well. It's exciting for.
And some interesting mix with the broadcasters in different countries. A lot of them showing the sprint race at some events on free to air, which is it's a great attraction. It's great traction for new fans. It's a great hook for the race on Sunday. So really happy. I think that we'll have. I personally think that we won't have many repeated winners Saturday to Sunday.
Okay, because we did ask all the riders, didn't we, throughout testing, did a little video, and I think a lot of people were either 50% or higher, they think it'll be the same winner. I agree with you.
I think
there'll be some Saturday heroes and some Sunday heroes.
I think going back to 2020, where we were racing at the same circuit in consecutive weekends, and I think it was only one out of the 7 that there were with the same winner, which was Fabio in Jerez, I think it was. And this is a totally different, it's half the number of laps. You shouldn't be taking that much care of your tire or fuel, there is a limitation on fuel. But so I think, it's a different strategy, and I think that the new guys on the block and the young ones are definitely going to want to make a name for themselves.
It is an interesting one, and yeah, I guess it is different. I think I won't name them, one of the crew chiefs from a MotoGP team said basically that's when you get the best information anyway. So even for people who may be like, I don't know, I like my traditional Grand Prix racing, even from that standpoint, the technical info they can gain from having more racing laps, when it's not just you, wouldn't it be great if I was alone here and it was simply a time trial? There'll be people in your way, you'll learn a lot more about that. You'll see the track offline, see how the grip develops. There's a lot to learn for them as well.
Yeah, and the other thing new this year is that MotoGP is always on track after Moto2. Which before was only on the race day, and now it's going to, that sort of gives them more information. The track is going to be more consistent. And to your point, yeah, I think there's teams and riders that need less information during Friday and Saturday to be fast and to be immediately, competitive, and others that take a bit longer. And you don't know which way sprint is going to work on. Is it going to be better for the riders that need less time because it's a smaller, shorter race? You need to be fast in qualifying, or are those other riders going to have an advantage because they have that much more information from Saturday?
Exactly. And then finally on this then, obviously it's at every single race weekend. So the change we've seen other sports, everyone knows who we're talking about, introduce it at a few events, but here it's no, all or nothing, straight in. Do you think, obviously you said before that continuity is what was important. Do you still think that's as important now? We're facing down 21 race weekends now, and we've got 21 sprints, but every single event offers that same incredible show in the format.
I think that MotoGP and other motorsports, we have an incredible advantage to, you know, an incredible property, but also an advantage in having the ability to shape our calendar and to have all events count the same. There's no Grand Slam, and that, you know, commercially for us is huge, but also for our fans. And I think it was important for us to have the same format every week, and I think it's, you know, it is.
I agree.
A big part of it. People know that there's going to be Saturday and Sunday. You don't forget, oh, there was a sprint this weekend. So I do think that it's the right way going forward. But of course, as I said, you know, we're not stubborn. We'll react for positive change, and you know, I just hope that we're off to a good start. That we have safe racing here on Saturday and Sunday, and then we'll build some experience.
We will indeed. So calendar chat then. Obviously, 2 big ones this year that we've announced are Kazakhstan and India. How's that looking at the moment? How are you excited as well with this new year we've got this year? Obviously, we're starting in Europe, like we said, first time in a while. Then we've got Argentina, Americas, then our European stint, then a really long kind of flyaways at the end of the year. How are you feeling about the season, and what are thoughts on India and Kazakhstan now we're getting a bit closer to the events?
Yeah, well, so first off on the calendar, you know, as has been informed, Qatar is going over extensive makeup deal to the track,
which is exciting because it was already extremely nice. So yes. I'm like, wow, what are we going to go back to?
The layout is staying the same, but you know, the infrastructure is going to be, as everybody can imagine, you know, top notch, great for the spectators, the guests, and the teams and riders as well. So yeah, we needed to move that back to the later part of the calendar, and having Qatar there has made us shape everything. As we've been communicating lately, you know, we're super interested in reducing our carbon footprint. And logistics is definitely the biggest part of that. So we've done it in a way that we had all the Eastern races together.
Because it kind of looks like if you now were like, okay, you're going to backpack through these countries, it's kind of the way you do it anyway.
Yeah.
So it really does make sense to put it together, doesn't it?
Energetically and from a carbon footprint point of view, the most efficient way to go around the world for us. And you know, starting in Europe, as I said, was a great was a great asset to the championship. I don't think it'll be the same next year, and probably Qatar. It looks like Qatar will be returning to be the first event of the year. So that's headlines out there. But
I've made sure we've been putting because of works, so we've not been suggesting the opposite, but yeah. Because I think there's pros and cons to both, isn't there? Because obviously in terms of the logistics, and also anyone listening, you probably don't know all of the stuff that we do before you actually get the races. There's photo shoots, there's the new opening credits and everything that's out today. That's all been filmed here in Portimao before the event with the test, and then the Moto2, Moto3 test. It's useful, isn't it, when you can send everything in trucks down the road, and then it's there. But there's also the beautiful night vibe of Qatar also adds its own kind of, I was like, chispa, what's that in English? You'll be able to tell me. You speak better than me. Spark. There you go. There's pros and cons. Qatar is an incredible place to open the season, with it being our only night race in the calendar, and we love being there. That's our target for next year. But then we have to pay attention to logistics and how we make sure that our carbon footprint is as low as possible. And then as you were saying, two new events in the calendar this year. It's been a long time since we haven't had that. I think Kazakhstan will surprise everybody. Almaty's a great city. And we're excited for that in July. Because you've been, haven't you? So we're all like, tell us.
I have been in Almaty. It's very lively, good vibes. So yeah, Kazakhstan in July. It also makes sure that we don't go off or out for too long in the summer. And then India, of course, a huge potential for all of us, to grow our audience in the country with the biggest number of two wheels in the world, and
providing my perfect segue for the next topic there. Thank you.
Exactly, and the biggest population from this year in the world also, as it overtakes China.
Really? Okay.
Yes. So
you heard that here first as well.
So yeah, a bit of economics, yes. So really happy for both of those. I think that the paddock, going back to the calendar, the paddock of course understands it, but no, we also understand that it's hard humanly on the staff, not only the teams, but of course Dorna. Those 8 races in 10 weeks, and we don't like to finish as late as we're doing this year. But it's the way that it has been, and I'm sure that we're up for an amazing end to the season. So
I'm really excited. I'm one of those people who likes it like switched off or switched on. So for me, triple header off. I'm like, yes, that's perfect, because it's just like that's for me. But yeah, it is definitely obviously a challenge, and it is quite different to what we've seen before as well. It'll also be different for the riders. Going back to India then, and your perfect segue you provided, obviously this year there's a lot new in terms of the sprint on track. Next year we're starting to see sustainable fuels, or certainly more sustainable fuels, 40% minimum. Talk to us a little bit about that, because that's another thing where it's not as simple as just saying like, okay, we're going to do this, go. Obviously a big project to be able to centralize everyone, agree all of the terms, agree exactly what each fuel will comprise, who's going to be involved, factory agreement, obviously really key with that as well. Talk us through sustainable fuels and how that has kind of come together, because it's exciting, another step for the sport as well.
Yeah, it's definitely been part of the agenda for a long time, and in MotoGP we're reactive to what happens in the industry, but also proactive to be able to push positive change. We spoke to the manufacturers all during 2021 and 2022 about which years those figures, 40% and 100%, would be implemented on. And
sorry, I should add 100% 2027.
Yes, and it took some considerable debate. Of course, you have to think that every single manufacturer thinks about every rule change as a possibility of gaining or losing advantage, and they always think that everybody else is voting in their own advantage, without thinking about the championship or the greater good. So that's probably, and it's into Dorna's position to sort of, achieve compromise. And we would of course like for it to be as soon as possible. And 2024 it was reasonable. It's going to be across all classes. It's going to not be one single fuel supplier. So we will have, I think it's 6 different fuel suppliers in the paddock. Also, for example, independent teams, some of them have their own fuel supplier. So, really positive change, really important for us that manufacturers, bike manufacturers, but tire manufacturers, fuel manufacturers, leathers, helmets, all of them, they continue to use MotoGP as a testing, laboratory, as a testing platform to develop products to make the world a better place, and sustainable fuel is one. And for those of you listening, it'll be a drop-in fuel, which means that they'll be able to drop it in literally into the engines that we're using now, and they will work. There will be some small losses of power, which we welcome in lines of safety. But the target is for that fuel carbon neutral to be available, on the streets of the world for those, billions of motorbikes and millions in India alone to be running on that technology. And that's how MotoGP helps the world, to make sure that, without losing safety, without, having to balance on performance, that what we do here helps
exactly. I think there was an incredible Carmelo quote from the Moto E launch last week that was like, competition's basically made everything happen. And I think it's so true though. So many steps forward in the last sort of 120 years of like powered transport properly. You can see such incredible steps forward from when things have had to find their limit because someone's racing it to win. Yes. It makes a big difference. And obviously here MotoGP, that's true of all those people, all the stakeholders, but also all the technology. And obviously we have Moto E, which becomes a world championship this year. That's kind of a parallel path of that sustainability and how we can improve that, obviously with the 0 emissions from the actual bike. But I think it's great that there's both technologies now within this same paddock that are being developed, that drop-in fuel and the electric mobility, that have such different applications as well. Because it's fine for us going back to where we live, you could probably charge your electric bike. That's a little more challenging if you do live in Lombok and you're waiting for us to come for that race weekend. So those two technologies can really complement each other, can't they, and make that big difference.
Yeah, like I said, we're happy to provide platforms for manufacturers to develop their products on, being clear that we are in the sports entertainment industry, and that's what we care about, to make our product as entertaining as possible.
You can't come here and bore us, guys. You just have to be excellent and entertaining.
Yes, exactly. So develop your product, but make it exciting. But having said that, you know, clearly I think that there's different paths for sustainability, and Southeast Asia is a huge market for us and for the world in general, and for our manufacturers and brands, with more and more racing there in the past years. And like you were saying, there has to be a parallel solution for those vehicles, and definitely sustainable fuels is the correct one.
Cool. Well, there you go then. I don't know what else to ask you now. It's like that's all of our key topics for the sport. I would put you on the spot and make you predict champions, but I'm sure then you'll immediately get an incredible amount of messages from everyone you didn't mention yelling at you.
Yeah, we don't usually do that.
I know, right? It's just like stay away from that beautiful neutrality. But we have a few minutes left then. I think one of the other things that is an interesting thing for fans who kind of don't know how it works, because I don't want it to anyone listening to think that I'm telling you you have no idea. That's not the vibe at all. But the guys, to get like a look behind the looking glass. In terms of Dorna, obviously the FIM do the rules. IRTA is like the teams association in the paddock. One thing I think that, having come from the riders briefing just earlier, the safety commission, that's a really important part of the sport. Dorna's there, Dorna's involved in a lot of different things, but what is the role that we have in the paddock? And what is your biggest goal then? That's where I'll put you on the spot. What's your biggest goal for the next 5 years? In 50 words or less.
I just got married and I'm expecting, so.
Okay, I wasn't going to bring that up. Yes, exactly. So just
I hope that goes well. But professionally wise, clearly the target for Dorna is to grow our global audience, to continue to have an amazing, the most entertaining motorsport that's out there, and you know, we need to clearly work on our storytelling to make make it available and make it known of how amazing those guys are and what they do. And you know, the riders are incredible heroes, and that links to the safety commission. It's definitely a huge.
What I was trying to get out, which I didn't say, I think there's more a collaborative effort behind the scenes than it seems.
Yeah, definitely.
There's a lot of exchange, isn't there? And everyone kind of working together to try and make that.
Yeah, definitely. You know, the riders, I think and we feel that the riders have a great voice in the championship, and we listen to them a lot and have been before it was fashionable. So we have been doing that for a long time. So we're very proud in that. And there's a safety commission, but also, you know, the riders have an incredible relationship with us, with Carmelo and the rest of the staff at Dorna, and we're very happy about it. So you know, of course there's different points of view, and we work on trying to make them as famous and as known as possible to the billions of people around the world. But we also understand that they have a race to win on Sunday, and of course it's a risky sport here. So you know, there's a compromise to that, but I think the atmosphere in the MotoGP paddock is a great one, and I think everybody loves to be a part of it.
I think it really is. I think also, strangely, it's got so much, not closer that it wasn't before, but especially having gone through COVID with so much of an extra challenge for the sport, which we overcame pretty incredibly. Like we said, those races at the same track, obviously masks, so many different protocols had to put in place to keep the show going. I think everyone got even closer through that. And it's
I hope you don't mean physically, because that was that.
Of course, we were constantly hugging and breaking every rule. No, but you know what I mean. It's really
everybody did get that sort of team effort going on in MotoGP, and it was we finished here, and
yeah, actually, I keep forgetting that it was here.
Yeah, it was the only time that we haven't finished in Valencia, and it was actually in this same room where we had the awards. Super low-key award ceremony for that COVID year. And things have definitely changed since then. But yeah, everybody grew closer. Everybody knew that it was a team effort by everybody having to comply with the rules and making a big effort, and spending a lot of time away from home at the end of 2020. But we definitely all got closer.
I kind of love it as well because it's like the competition is brutal, as it should be. But if there's something that's like not more serious because we race to win, it's a serious business. But you know what I mean? If there's like a genuine issue or something, everyone does pull together so much, and I think it's really palpable.
Yeah, and I think it's great. It's great that we all trust ourselves and trust the different parts of the business, that everybody's gonna perform and deliver their own part. And we just at Dorna, we just hope we are up to the level of the great partners that we have.
Well, we'll try our best. I'll stop there for anyone listening going, yeah, you're so great. No, that wasn't the point. It's just that the atmosphere is genuinely great. It's such a treat to start in Europe, like you said as well. Pretty different, beautiful sunshine here in the Algarve. So yeah, I think that's pretty much...
I think we've been pretty lucky. I've been checking the weather for this weekend for about 5 months since we published the calendar, because I was nervous about it. Last year we were here at the end of April, so a month after, when the weather should be much better, and it was pretty bad last year here. So we were pretty nervous, but we have a predicted forecast of 3 days of sunshine with over 20 degrees. So I think it's going to be an amazing start to the new era.
With the sunny weather then, what would it take for you to jump in the pool next to the media centre?
With the sunny weather, is that me against Fabio? For the win?
What would it take to convince you that was worth doing?
Well, if we have a good start to the new format, I wouldn't mind jumping in for a dip.
Okay, I'm not actually going to hold you to that, but that's surprisingly low price. So
safe weekend is always does it.
Safe weekend, cool. Well, thank you for joining us, Carlos. Some good, we did get a question about India and Kazakhstan, which I just asked you as it came up. So yeah, thanks to everyone who's listened and watched.
No more questions, that was pretty easy.
Yeah, it's,
you can have me again then.
Cool, so yeah, the next 20 then, yeah?
Nobody's interested.
Definitely not true, but yeah, thank you for coming. It's always good, I think, to get to know a little bit more behind the scenes, and yeah, just talk to someone who knows about these new changes and what's the thinking behind it, how it's going to work, all of that stuff. So yeah, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
It's weird me being in the position where it's like, thank you, you may go now.
I can just leave. Yeah, thank you.
But yeah, thanks a lot, and thanks to everyone who's been watching as part of the Gear Up show, and thank you to everyone who's listened. We'll be back again, and now it's nearly time for the press conference, and we will head, for those of us in Portugal, back to Simon and Jack.
End of November in Valencia, and the MotoGP podcast will be back this time next week from Argentina, a part of this brand new Grand Prix Gear Up show. We'll be giving you a special MotoGP podcast live from every venue that we visit, with the likes of Carlos, with riders, with team managers, so it's certainly not to be missed every weekend. Of course, Simon, the key focus there was something that we've touched